Hello and welcome to another lesson from Level Up Mathematics. In today's lesson, we will be using the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations that have complex or non-real answers. Now, before we do, we need to review how to simplify expressions, radical expressions. So let's look at problem A. We have the square root of negative 10 squared minus 4 times 7 times 1. They want us to evaluate this expression and express our answers in simplified radical form. So if I evaluate this would be negative 10 squared would be positive 100 minus 4 times 7 is 28. 28 times 1 is 28, which results in 100 minus 28, square root 72. Now, we could leave our answer like that, but it's not simplified because square root 72 can be rewritten as square root 36, which is a perfect square, times square root 2. Now, the square root of 36 is 6. So our final answer here would be 6 square root 2. All right, let's try the next one. We have square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3. So negative 4 squared is 16 minus 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. And then if you combine your like terms, you get square root negative 8. Now remember, we can simplify square roots that have negatives if we use the imaginary unit. So this would be the same thing as square root negative 1 times square root 4 times square root 2. Now, square root of negative 1 is I. The square root of 4 is 2. So this would be 2I square root 2. All right, problem C. 4 plus or minus square root of negative 36 divided by 2. We want to simplify or evaluate this expression. So square root of negative 36 is the same thing as square root of negative 1 times square root 36. And square root of negative 1 is I, and square root of 36 is 6. So this would have simplified as 6I. So 4 plus or minus 6I over 2. Now I'm going to, since all of these coefficients will divide by 2, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6I divided by 2 is 3I. All right, problem D. Negative 6 plus or minus square root of negative 45 divided by 3. Now before we start, let's simplify square root negative 45. We have a negative, so we need to take out, use the imaginary unit to simplify this. This would be square root negative 1 times square root 9 times square root 5. Square root of negative 1 is I. Square root of 9 is 3. So this would be 3I square root 5. All right. So negative 6 plus or minus 3I square root 5 divided by 3. So negative 6 divided by 3 would be negative 2. 3I square root 5 divided by 3 would be I square root 5. Now, in today's problems, in our previous lesson, we were solving our quadratic equations by factoring. Factoring is a great method, but not every quadratic equation you encounter will factor. And that's why the quadratic formula is so important. Now, you learned to use the quadratic formula in previous courses, so I'm not going to go over all the steps. I'm just going to assume that you know basically how the quadratic formula works, and I'm just going to give you a brief review of how to use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations that have real number solutions. So look at example 2. It says, what are the solutions to the equation 3x squared plus 12x is equal to negative 6? Now, just as by way of reminder, when you're solving with quadratic formula, the first thing you want to do is make sure all the terms are on the same side. So I'll add 6 to both sides. That would give me 3x squared plus 12x plus 6 is equal to 0. So that's the first thing you want to do. You want to make sure one of the sides is equal to 0. Now let's identify our A, which is 3, our B, which is 12, and our C, which is 6. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the quadratic formula. I'm going to replace all the variables with parentheses. So b squared minus 4 times parenthesis, all over 2 parentheses. All right, now let's plug everything in where they go. All right, so the b's go here and here. The a's go here and here, and c goes right here. All right, now let's evaluate that. X equals, the opposite of positive 12 is negative 12, plus or minus. The square, or 12 squared is 144, minus 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 6 is 72, all over 6. Now, if you look at your answer choices, none of your answer choices look like that. Let's do a little more simplifying and see if we can get it to look closer to our answer choices. So x equals negative 12 plus or minus square root 144 minus 72 is 72 divided by 6. Now, remember, the square root of 72 is the same thing as square root 36 times square root 2, which is 6 square root 2. So I'm going to simplify this a little bit more and say negative 12 plus or minus 6 square root 2 over 2. Over 6. Don't know why. That was supposed to be a 6. Now I'm going to divide all these terms by 6. And that will give me negative 12 divided by 6 is negative 2, plus or minus 6 divided by 6 is 1, so square root 2. Now, let's look at our answer choices and see if one matches that answer. And sure enough, answer A matches our answer. All right, example 3. Solve each of the following. Problem A, we have 3x squared plus 4x plus 6. So let's identify our A, our B, and our C. Okay? And then I'm going to replace all of the variables with parentheses in my quadratic formula. B squared minus 4 parenthesis, all over 2 parentheses. Then I'll put my B's here and here. My A's will go here and here. My C will go there. All right, so the opposite of positive 4 is negative 4, plus or minus the square root. This would be 16 minus 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 6 is 72. And 2 times 3 is 6. All right, so negative 4 plus or minus square root 16 minus 72 would be negative 56 over 6. Now we're going to simplify this a little bit. Square root negative 56 would be square root negative 1 times square root 4 times square root 14. So that would be 2i square root 14. So negative 4 plus or minus 2i square root 14 over 6. Now all of these terms will reduce by 2. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. 2i divided by 2 is I. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So final answer. All right, look at problem B. We have 2x squared equals negative 4x minus 5. Now, in this problem, we don't have all of our terms on the same side. So let's add 4x to both sides and add 5 to both sides. So this would give us 2x squared plus 4x plus 5 equals 0, which means A is 2, B is 4, and C is 5. So x will equal the opposite of parenthesis plus or minus square root parenthesis squared minus 4 parenthesis all over 2 parenthesis. Now plugging in your values, you're going to put your B here and here. Your A goes here, and your C goes right here. All right, so we'll simplify that a little further. The opposite of positive 4 is negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 5 is 40. And 2 times 2 is 4. All right, so this would be x equals negative 4 plus or minus square root negative 24 over 4. Now, square root negative 24 would reduce to square root negative 1 times square root 4 times square root 6, which would be 2I square root 6. So, negative 4 plus or minus 2I square root 6 over 4. Now let's reduce all of those by 2. So negative 2 plus or minus I square root 6 over 2. All right, problem C. 2x squared minus 8x equals negative 10. So step 1, I want to make sure all of the terms are on the left side and the right side is equal to 0. So our A value is 2, our B value negative 8, and our C value positive 10. So x equals opposite parenthesis plus or minus square root parenthesis squared minus 4 parenthesis all over 2 parentheses. Put our B's here, our A's here, and our C here. So the opposite of negative 8 would be positive 8 plus or minus 64 minus 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 10 is 80 all over 4. So 8 plus or minus, let's see, that would be 64 minus 80. That would be negative 16 over 4. Now, the square root, let me get a different color here. The square root of negative 16 is the square root negative 1 times square root 16, which is I times 4, or 4I. So when I simplify this, this will be 8 plus or minus 4I over 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. 4I divided by 4 is I. So 2 plus or minus I. All right, pause the video and try problem D on your own. All right, let's see how you did. On problem D, hopefully you moved the 4x over and made it negative. And then you said opposite of negative 4 plus or minus negative 4 squared minus 4 times 3 times 2 all over 2 times 3. So the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4 plus or minus 16. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24 all over 6. So 4 plus or minus square root negative 8 over 6. Now square root negative 8 is square root negative 1 times square root 4 times square root 2. So that would be 2I square root 2. So 4 plus or minus 2I square root 2 over 6. Now all of those coefficients will divide by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, plus or minus. 2i divided by 2 is I. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So final answer. And that concludes today's lesson, solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula.